This is another great topic I want us to discuss about, and I need views. Wole Soyinka versus Chinua Achebe, who portrays more African heritage and who is the better writer? Now, talking about who portrays more African heritage, Chinua Achebe, let's talk about his language and culture. Achebe is celebrated for weaving Igbo proverbs, folktales, and traditional worldview into English narratives. Things Fall Apart is practically a cultural document introducing the world to Igbo cosmology, customs, justice system, and colonial impact from an insider's perspective. Now, the themes. Chinua Achebe's fiction often examines the clash between traditional African society and European colonialism, making his work both anthropological and political. Simplicity and accessibility. His use of simple language made the African worldview accessible to both local and global readers. Examples. In Arrow of God, the tension between traditional leadership and colonial structures dramatizes African heritage in transition. We could also see that in Things Fall Apart. Now, Wole Soyinka's deeper methodology and ritualistic roots. Soyinka goes beyond surface culture and engages deeply with Yoruba methodology, metaphysical and traditional philosophy, especially in plays like Death and King's Horseman and the Bouquet of Euripides, The Ritual and the Myth. Drama and ritual. His theatrical works reflect the ritual essence of African heritage, integrating music, dance, drumming, mask, and community participation. Philosophical depth. Soyinka is more concerned with existential questions such as the metaphysical role of the artist in society, the cyclical nature of time, the spiritual continuity, all rooted in African thought. Yes. Now, talking about the heritage itself, Achebe gives us a narrative and socio-political heritage, the external world of African life, ethics, and history. Soyinka gives us ritualistic, philosophical, and mythical heritage, the inner world of African spirituality and cosmology. So when we talk about heritage, we mean culture, language, custom. Achebe portrays more. But if we mean myth, metaphysical, and rituals, Soyinka dives deeper. But who is a better writer? This is highly subjective, but we need to compare them based on some criteria. The language and style. Let's talk about that. Now, Achebe clear, direct, and deceptively simple. That is his language. His prose reads smoothly and is rich with proverbs and idiomatic expressions. Soyinka dense, poetic, and intellectual. His use of English is baroque. Even difficult, he reinvents the language to capture African orature and political intensity. Now, let's talk about the genre. Achebe, master of the novel, he also wrote short stories, poetry, and essays, but his major impact is through fiction. Soyinka, a polymath, a poet, playwright, essayist, memorist, and novelist. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature 1986, largely for his work in drama and poetry, not fiction. Now, global impact. Achebe's Things Fall Apart is the most widely read African novel ever. It has been translated into over 60 languages. Achebe is the father of African literature in the novel form. Soyinka, first black African Nobel laureate in literature. His influence is more academic and theatrical than popular. Now, let's talk about the political engagement. Both were politically active and suffered from their beliefs, yes. But let's talk about Achebe. Achebe used the pen to speak truth to power. Soyinka used the stage and the activism. Even he faced imprisonment. So I want you to tell me who is a better writer, because I don't know how to judge them, or I don't know how to grade them.